Two words can sum up Shadow Heritage: messy and forced. We all knew what was coming. Instead of dropping subtle hints in Hunted, Ubisoft dropped boulders. And as you progress through Shadow Heritage, it becomes more and more obvious that nothing you say or do can change the inevitable outcome. The base game has plenty of choice, but the second DLC in Legacy of the First Blade is a stubborn, awkward storyteller that forcefully shoehorns its poorly conceived plot into your timeline. Before we begin with this review, we should point out that to begin the DLC, you'll need to have completed the Reunion and Chapter 7 in the base game, and begin the quest called Stranger Tides. You will need to be at least level 28, but I would recommend that you're at least at level 40 because the maximum level that you have to fight against is 45 in this DLC, so please bear that in mind. And due to the nature of this review, episode spoilers will follow, so if you want to stay away from spoilers, or if you haven't already been spoiled by the plethora of articles on the internet already, then please stop watching this video now. Okay, so I have my theories on why Ubisoft might be heading down this route. This episode ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, which foreshadows a rather bleak opening for Bloodlines, and it's quite possible that all of this is happening to be undone at a later point. But the story comes at the expense of its main character. In my case, Cassandra. A Cassandra who has stayed her hand when a Spartan is prepared to face death, a warrior worshipped as a demigod. But in Shadow Heritage, change is forced on us and Cassandra. No matter what she's done, the story is intent on leading her towards, as the game calls it, a simpler life. But you don't get to choose who you live that life with. You don't get to determine where you live or whether to have a child. You don't even get to choose child's name. To be frank, it all feels completely out of touch with the adventures you've been having up to this point, where choice has played such an important part in each quest, whether it's a deceitful lie or a romantic gesture, the way you approach each task and how outcomes can differ. In my case, as mentioned, I'm Cassandra. The supposed love of my life is a man called Natakas, a man I shunned at near enough every opportunity in the DLC prior and in this one again. Never nasty, but responding in typical Cassandra fashion as I have done so many times before. It's nothing personal, but he's not a particularly well-written character or one I, to be honest, particularly care about. And yet Cassandra keeps giving him these glances during the cutscenes, and when I reject his advances, I often see the pained grimace on his face. It gets to a point where the guy just won't take no for an answer, and he keeps showing up. It's exhausting, and frankly, it's all a bit uncomfortable. And while Ubisoft clearly have a story they want to tell with Cassandra and Alexios, by giving the player so much responsibility over shaping the world around them, that player connects with the character on a different level, whether Nathan Drake or an Aloy. Their choices part become that character, and in theory, the world around them will respond in kind. There's no such opportunity to shape the events in Shadow Heritage in any way though. And to be completely honest, after going through so much with this character, I feel like it would be at least a little bit fair to let the player have some sort of input on her future life. As the trophy states though, Ubisoft are adamant on Cassandra growing up and living a life of domestic bliss. It's a very narrow-minded view, and the abrupt nature of it all is poorly written and ultimately overshadows any good the DLC occasionally throws your way, like the ship battles for instance, which offer a nice break from the land-based warfare, and the intriguing relationship between Clatter and the Tempest, the DLC's big bad. Amazingly, there is actually more to Shadow Heritage than the romantic thread which has dominated the headlines, but because it's all so badly written and done and executed and constantly put in your face, it's all you end up thinking about. Unfortunately, the cutscenes don't help Shadow Heritage's case either, as they are often stuttery and juddery. Lines of dialogue end up running over each other, and there's lag in the midst of fight sequences. The poor performance issues I mentioned in the Hunted DLC have amazingly carried across to Shadow Heritage and somehow got worse. From start to finish, Shadow Heritage is a mess, and truthfully, it's probably best avoided altogether. It's full of poor directing choices, awful narrative decisions, and glitches that seem to worsen throughout. What it's building up towards is anyone's guess, but sadly, despite the strong opening of Hunted, I could barely muster the strength to care. Summarise on the pro side, there's some good content variety. On the cons, this is just disappointingly poor, and it's an out-of-touch narrative direction that really just goes at odds with everything that's come before it. The glitches worsen throughout the playthrough, there's terrible directing, and it is surprisingly short. So we've chosen to give Assassin's Creed Odyssey Legacy the First Blade Shadow Heritage a 5 out of 10. And we tested this on a PlayStation 4. Thanks as always for watching. Don't forget to react and comment below. We'd love to hear what you think about Shadow Heritage and Legacy the First Blade DLC. This is going to be a tough one to come back from with Bloodlines, I have to be honest. We really don't know where this is leading. We don't know what Ubisoft has planned next, and where this also ties into the Fate of Atlantis DLC as well. And it's such a real shame because Hunted was such a great DLC to begin this season pass. It really was a strong opening, and it's just led to this, which is really disappointing and kind of upsetting, to be honest. But we will be reviewing Bloodlines when it launches. We'll let you know what we think of that. Be very interested to see what sort of changes Ubisoft are going to make to Shadow Heritage whenever that patch drops before Bloodlines. But for now, thanks for watching. See you next time.